he needed to be, his movement needed to be wiped out. I was on my way to arrest Christians. And ultimately, he appeared to me and he loved me and he forgave me and he can forgive you. And then maybe the pagan was kind of like a Bart Ehrman skeptic and said something like, oh, well, why should I believe you, Paul? And Paul said, well, what about Peter? Peter was his chief disciple and Jesus appeared to him. I can introduce you to him. And what about James, his brother? And what about a group of disciples that ultimately were with Jesus for 3 years? That he appeared to them multiple times. And also 500 people even Jesus appeared to at one time. And hundreds of them, I've met many of them, hundreds of them are still alive. And you can go and investigate and talk to them about what it was like to see Jesus. I mean, I like to just imagine that it was something like that. But, I find that compelling, and I think that, that kind of layout is what Luke means in the beginning of Acts when he refers to the convincing proofs. He says there were these convincing proofs, tekmerios, this great Greek word that was used for irrefutable statements in rhetorical Greek documents. And these convincing proofs were probably the appearances, and I think that really has been
and to that extent,
that's been what's been convincing to Christians throughout the last 2,000 years.
And your contention is that most New Testament historians, be they Christian or not, agree that these claims happened, that people said that they had seen the risen Jesus or met the risen Jesus.
Let me get specific because I get specific in the book. So there's actually, by my count, 13 appearances of Jesus. 4 individual appearances to individuals, and 9 to groups, 9 groups. But 4 of those, the 4 individuals, that's the ones probably we'll discuss here. The 4 individuals are the ones that are pretty much bedrock. Virtually all will accept that Jesus appeared to, or Peter believed Jesus appeared to him. James, the brother of Jesus, believed he appeared to him. Paul obviously believed he appeared to him, and then we can bring in Mary Magdalene because I'm pretty sure Bart, he can correct me if I'm wrong, but believes Mary Magdalene also had that experience. She's accounted for in all 4 Gospels, being the first to actually witness the risen Jesus. So those 4 would be kind of the bedrock eyewitnesses.
Well, why don't we stick with those specific ones and get your take on that, Bart? So to what degree do you agree that at least people claimed to have seen the risen Jesus?
I think it's probably right. I mean, Paul certainly. Paul tells us that he did. The problem with these others, of course, is they don't tell us that. So we don't have, Peter didn't leave us writings where he said, I saw Jesus. James didn't leave us writings. We don't know who the 500 were, none of this. So what historians tend to do, of course, is to examine their sources of information. And the most important thing is to know what the sources are, to determine whether they are reliable or not, and to see what they say. I mean, so we infer that, I think that Peter probably did say that he saw Jesus, and I think James probably did. I don't know about the 500. They come out of nowhere in 1 Corinthians 15. There's no
Mary Magdalene?
Well, we don't have anything from her either, obviously.
I know, but do you believe that she had an experience?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
And I believe that in a lot of religious traditions, you get reports like that. And so my issue with this kind of bedrock thing is whether it's appropriate to consider these kinds of claims outside of other claims for other religious figures. Do we treat them equally, or do we provide a kind of do we say, well, it's more likely true because it's in the Bible and less likely true if it's in the Mormon tradition, or if it's in the Muslim tradition, or if it's in ancient Greek and Roman mythology, or not just mythology, ancient Greek and Roman history. And so do you give equal weight to everything? And if so, then why is it that you prefer these witnesses to the others?
Yeah, Justin. Great question. What is the evidence? So my question would be, what is the evidence? You brought up Islam, you brought up Mormonism. Well, in Islam, this only supernatural really claim is to Muhammad. It's one eyewitness. And I agree with Deuteronomy. We shouldn't trust anything unless it's at least 2 or 3 witnesses. So we have 4 that you agree with. In Christianity, when it comes to Mormonism, again, Joseph Smith is the only person to say that Moroni appeared to him, and he said Jesus and God the Father and a lot of other strange things.
I'm not sure, Justin.
But only one person Only one eyewitness in both those cases, both those religions you brought up. But I'd like to hear the evidence
Well,
for the Greek and Roman.
I don't know if you've studied Mormonism very much.
Oh, I've studied a lot.
There are 11 eyewitnesses, and they
To the golden plates.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're
Yes.
going to compare
And that
golden plates to
four-
the resurrection of Jesus?
No, I'm just saying if you're a historian,
Yeah.
and what you're doing is you're saying we're going to trust eyewitnesses.
Okay, I'm fine with them seeing golden plates, but what does that tell
Four
us?
of them say they saw Moroni give them to him. 4 saw him. Who actually signed affidavits.
Half of them left the faith.
They left. No, they didn't. They
abandoned
left.
Joseph
They
Smith.
left Joseph
Well,
Smith.
they
but
abandoned
conti-
Joseph Smith, yeah.
But when they abandoned Joseph Smith, they continued to say that they saw Moroni. So, do you credit those?
Okay, well that would only be 3. But
No,
to
but
abandon Joseph Smith, Joseph Smith
5.
is the foundational
It's-
prophet.
It's 4 plus Joseph Smith. That's 5. I'm just saying, are you being impartial, or are you saying it's more likely because
Okay,
these are biblical witnesses?
Well, okay,
In those
let me
cases, by
grant-
the way, we actually have their testimony.
Okay.
And it's within 100 years.
Yeah, but it's
So
good enough.
with the New Testament, you don't have Peter's testimony,
But
or,
it's- but what
or
it-
James's testimony, or the 500, or so you don't have 4. You've got Paul.
But what we have is good enough to convince you for the New Testament eyewitnesses. You've already agreed that
this
Jesus.
is
you
exactly
believe
my point.
Jesus appeared to them.
Exactly my
so
point.
with Moroni,
I agree they claimed it,
but let's stick with
but that
Moroni.
isn't proof that it happened.
Right.
Who
And
else
that's the
has
difference.
Moroni appeared to other than those people in history?
We're talking about a particular event. Was Jesus raised from the dead, and a particular
But other things can support another event, right? So if Jesus is appearing to people, for example, all throughout history, if we have eyewitness,
That's a separate argument.
Okay.
So I think we have to take
But that
one
would
argument at a
contrib-
time, because if you just start piling on arguments, we have to consider each of those arguments in turn.
Okay, but I'm giving.
So
I'm just giving you my reasoning that
I
why
understand.
Moroni's not convincing. To
I understand,
All right.
but I don't think you've listened to my case here.
Okay.
You are basing everything you said.
Not basing everything.
You said the
We're
bedrock.
starting with appearances. This isn't my only argument.
You said the bedrock is Paul, because Paul gives us the information about Cephas and James. Correct?
I said Paul is the bedrock in the sense that the vast majority of scholars agree when it comes to Paul. That's what I mean by
How
bedrock.
many ancient Christian writings do we have by somebody who says in those writings that he saw Jesus?
Directly, Paul.
Thank you.
But
How
we
many
have,
do we have?
We have Peter.
for-
I would say Peter wrote first and second Peter, and second Peter, Peter says that he saw
saw the transfiguration.
the transfiguration. Exactly.
That's not the resurrection.
Okay.
So you've
but
got
John
Paul.
saw the risen Jesus, at least in heaven, in Revelation.
You're counting that as a historical source?
Of seeing something, of seeing Jesus again. That's
In
enough.
heaven.
That would contribute to the argument. Again, that's the point. That these things go back
Okay.
to
Let me try again.
support
because
the
I think
original
I want us to be clear what we're
miraculous
talking
claim.
about.
You have nothing beyond
be
those
clear.
3 witnesses with Moroni.
Okay.
Nothing.
Let me finish.
Okay.
You're saying that Paul gives us the evidence for himself. He saw Jesus, but none of the others. You think Peter wrote 1st and 2nd Peter, and okay, but that would be 2.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying that in the case of Moroni giving Joseph Smith the plates, we have 4. So if the idea is that you trust eyewitnesses who swear to what they saw, and that we're doing this impartially. No.
Okay.
We're doing this impartially as historians. In other words, we're not trying to back up our faith. We're not trying to prove that we're right about something. Historians don't do that. Historians try to figure out what happened in the past, and they evaluate their sources. So what I'm saying is, if you're going to take the sources that agree with you and you say that they're probably right, not because they agree with you, but because they're reliable sources, because you've got Paul and you've got Peter, say, okay, well, I've got 4 people from Moroni giving the plates. And these people are highly religious people. The religiosity was never questioned. I am not saying that I think that it happened. I don't think it happened.
Yeah. For good reason.
But on the way you're mounting an argument for Paul and Peter, I don't see how you can exclude the argument for Moroni.
Well, let's hear from Justin. So essentially, Justin, is the question here, is there better evidence that the resurrection claims of these first followers of Jesus are better evidence than other claims from other religious traditions like Mormonism and so on, where they also claim to have been eyewitnesses to something miraculous?
Exactly. And what I was saying with the when it comes to the 4 eyewitnesses, one of them is Joseph Smith.
No. There's 4 in addition to Joseph Smith who claim they saw him. So there's 5.
Okay. Well, regardless, but I guess I want to hear why if you
it's
do regard
multiple-
them as different in some way to the
because
Mormons.
they're claiming a supernatural being named Moroni appeared to them. Okay. And so who else then has this Moroni figure appeared to? Because there's been other people that have claimed supernatural things have happened. But see, one of the things that I would say, well, who else has they appeared to, right?
Okay.
And who else has Moroni appeared to?
Well,
Other than those four.
Now, I just want you to agree that's a separate argument now.
Yeah, but
You
it
want supporting
contributes.
So let me.
I build a
ju-
case with
Yeah,
multiple
exactly, I
arguments.
get it.
It's not just one.
So when it comes to corroborative evidence of later witnesses, what about the angel? What about the Mother Mary?
Mm-hmm.
Now, Mary appears regularly to people. It's completely well documented. Thousands of people claim this happens. I'm going to assume that since you're not Catholic, you don't think these appearances happened.
I'm open to the evidence, and I do think some of the stories
Okay, so what
of
do you think
Mary
of
is
the evidence?
compelling. I think some of the stories is compelling.
You think she does appear to people?
But I think what the issue
No. Do you think she appears to people?
No, I don't. I don't know.
You just said the evidence was compelling.
Well, I said it's it's something to look into. I'm saying it's enough to look into.
Why don't you look into it? This would be
Well,
very important.
I have looked into it.
Okay, so
but let me answer. I think it lacks the unexpectedness. So it makes
Oh.
and it normally happens in Catholic contexts.
no, this is completely wrong. It does
No.
not.
Well,
does not
let me finish.
let's let Justin finish his point.
It
and I'll
normally
let you
happens
come
in
back.
Catholic contexts. Okay.
Okay.
And so people who are already Catholic,
Yes.
who expect, they pray to Mary regularly. They expect saints they pray to saints. They expect this kind of thing, and it's happened in only a handful of situations that have actually been confirmed by the church. But I ask you, if Mary is actually appearing to people, would that support the resurrection or not support the resurrection?
No, I'm saying that you have better.
No, answer that question.
I will answer it by telling you that we have better evidence for Mary appearing to people, many groups of people in the modern period, than we have for Jesus appearing to people in the modern period.
Okay.
By your criteria, that would mean that it's more likely that Mary is showing up. By your criteria. By
And-
my criteria, neither one happens.
Okay, but if Mary is appearing to people, does it more support the resurrection or not?
If she, yes, if Mary is showing up to people, then that would support the
So your
resurrection.
example to parallel to kind of thwart the evidence for the resurrection actually would support the resurrection.
No, you're not understanding my argument. I'm saying that you.
But that's true, right? What
no,
I
it's
just said
not.
is true.
No, you're not.
You just
understanding.
admitted that. You said if Mary is appearing to people, and you think there's a lot of evidence for it. I don't think so. I think it lacks the unexpectedness. The apostles, these people like Paul, Peter, Mary, were in no way expecting Jesus to appear to them. In no way.
Right. I
So
don't think you're-
so Catholics who expect that can have an expectation for this type of thing, it makes sense why it would happen. So you have so the
Look,
arguments
the problem is you're arguing about
four that we
three or
talked
four
about is
things at
stronger.
once. You're arguing three or four things at once. I don't think you've read the literature on Mary because in many
I've read a lot of it. Yeah, Laurentine. Yeah.
then you know full well that many times it's not expected. So because if you've read the literature, so
No. Of course it's expected. That's the point.
no, then you haven't read the literature.
well,
there are
in
many
those contexts-
testimonies of people who don't expect it and can't believe it.
Yeah, but they know about Christianity. They know about people appearing
How
to
many
people. They know
people-
about the resurrection of Jesus.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
And is that different from Jesus
they're in the
showing up to
Christian
people?
worldview? Yeah.
Well,
Where was the expectation for Jesus
this
appearing
is a
to people?
key part of what you
You mean by
discussed,
people who
Justin.
knew him?
Yeah. What was the expectation?
But
Where's the expectation for Mary? They're not expecting her to show up, and she does.
But they're in a worldview that
They
allows
are
that.
too in a worldview. They're in an apocalyptic worldview
okay,
that
where
expects
where
the
was a
resurrection.
Messiah? Where was the expectation of a Messiah rising again from the dead? Tell me that.
That isn't what generated the appearances. They
course.
thought they saw Jesus afterwards.
Of course, because he actually appeared to them.
Then they concluded he was the Messiah.
But if he didn't
They
appear to
weren't
them like you
expecting
believe,
the Messiah to rise,
how did they expect? Well, then how did they?
and they weren't expecting Mary to appear.
Okay, then how did they believe Jesus appeared to them?
They saw him.
Okay. So what did they see?
Well, how do we know? What do they see when they see Mary? You don't think they see Mary?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think some of the evidence
did
for the
they
Mary
see?
is they saw something.
Well, I think they saw something with Jesus too. Of course, I've never argued against that.
But that's the thing. It led them to say something that was completely unexpected.
Yes.
So I think it's
So
compelling evidence
can I just
that it
because
actually
you
is
guys are
to
going
raise Jesus.
10 to the dozen here, and I just want
Exactly.
to for the sake of the viewer or listener, I just want to be really clear on this point that you're making at this point, Justin, because there's a lot of different points being thrown out here. But it's that you say that the idea of a resurrected Messiah had been crucified and resurrected was completely unexpected in that Jewish
And Bart
culture,
agrees.
and therefore